I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of quick shading, and I'm going to use this rose. I drew this in a previous video, and I think that this is a good way to start because we have a lot of areas that are sort of coming down in, and they're over the top of, one petal is over the top of another one, and it will cast a good shadow on it. So I'm going to do this with you, and if you drew the rose, you might want to just use the rose. So here we go. I have a blending stump, which you don't necessarily need. What you could do is to use any kind of paper towel. You can kind of roll up the paper towel into a little tip, or you could even use your finger. I'm going to show you some blending techniques that will kind of help you make this look a little more alive. So I've got a number 3 B pencil, and I have just a regular number 2 pencil. Okay, so any area that is going in kind of towards, is a little closer to an edge and is wrapped up, or you have something that's flipping over, that's casting a shadow underneath. So let's put a little shadow underneath this. And those edges, let's give that a little bit of shadow. So I'm going to push first on my edge, and then a little less as I'm going to gradually have less pressure on my pencil as I come out and over. Okay, so a little less pressure as I come towards the center of that flower. This part all is a little darker than some of the outside areas because you're going to have highlights on those areas. So where you have the lines, you're going to really press on that. And you can see all of these are kind of curled over. So think of like how your hand would curl over, and underneath here would be darker. So we're going to get that shadow underneath there. So I'm just kind of putting a little bit of dark pencil underneath where those flaps kind of fold over like that. And I'm going to do a few little areas first. And then I will go ahead and use my blending stump. And like I said, if you don't have this, it's not a big deal. You can really make these super simple, or use anything that would just kind of smudge your pencil. All right, so this is all I'm going to do for this. There really is not a highlight in this part of the flower because this is the really wrapped up part. So there's not any light that's bouncing off and making it look almost white right there. So this is my edge also that is very dark, right in here. The flap right here, this is actually going to have a highlight on it, so that's going to be pretty light. Okay, so I'm going to get that going. Remember, it's actually pretty dark, like you're pressing in that on the line, and then you're bringing it out with a little less pressure on your pencil. Okay, and then you're just going to sort of fade it off a little bit. So, you don't have to use a blending stump at all on this. It's actually not necessary, and you should try to, use the blending stump for some things, and, you don't have to for other things. A lot of times I don't use that. Right in here, this part of the flower, there's a little curl over there, so it does cast a little shadow underneath it. And it kind of comes around a little here. And I'm doing this on a rainy day. So it's nice to be inside and draw and do something fun that you can be proud of. And I'm going to go very, very lightly. Just very, very lightly right there. Okay. Underneath here, this is going to be my dark area. you know, I'm using a picture for this, but honestly, you can see what's on top is going to be lighter. What's underneath is going to have a shadow cast on it. So think about it when you're drawing your picture. Okay, underneath here, let's get some of this going. This one's a little bit different. It has almost kind of almost little lines sort of in it. I think it's got a little bit of a ridge in the petal right here. So certain flowers, you're going to have these veins that go through them, and it shows like the direction of how the petal goes. And it's really nice when you get into coloring or shading any of those areas, because you'll be able to see how the petal falls over. Okay, now this actually has a little bit of darkness on the edge because it's starting to curl back around. It's curling like this. All right, we're going to get some of the edge of this up here. Right in here is pretty dark. And press. Sometimes I know that when you first start drawing, you get worried about pressing too hard on your shading, and you know, you don't get the range that you should get when you do that. So, you know, be brave and press on your pencil. The more you do, you're going to get a wider range of everything, and it will pop right out at you. It's going to be very cool. All right, so we'll just do some of this, and then we'll see what some of it looks like. Okay, so I'm just kind of light pressure as that goes out. And what you don't want to see are these choppy sort of lines. And another thing, I can already see what I'm doing here is my hand is going over an area that I've already done. This is not shaded, although what you might want to do is get a scrap piece of paper, put the scrap piece of paper down over that part that you're not doing, and put your hand on top of it. It just protects what you have already done, so it's not smudging it around. And we want that to look light in there. I might have to get my eraser, and your eraser is going to be a really good tool for you to use with this. So make sure you have a good eraser. I really do like these wedged erasers because it's almost like a drawing. It is a drawing tool. Okay. Now, this has a little tiny bit and it's starting to get light. So we've got to be careful about like the differences between the petals. Okay, so just a little tiny bit there. And this edge has a little, I'm going to get a little tiny bit too. It's a little. And you're going to be able to see that this gets darker, and you'll be able to shade with just your blending stuff as well. So any of these that are behind, get a little bit of shadow behind them. And when you shade, try not to go, if you know that petal's going up, then make sure you're shading going up like this. Okay, so you're shading in that kind of direction going like that. Like if I start going across like this, I'm going to be able to see that. And that's not how the flower grows. Think of it growing from the center out, center out. So it's kind of that direction that you're shading. And if you're coloring, it's the same type of thing. Okay, and I'm going to get right against this a little bit. Not too much here. I got a little, kind of comes around here. Just like that, a little bit there. All right, and this all looks like it's a different shade to me back here. Not super dark, but the whole thing looks like it's definitely a little darker than these ones in here. Okay, in the very center, you gotta push down. You want this to be some of the focal point. It's going to be. And then around like the little edge of this, you want it to be very light. I can see actually like a white edge. Okay, so it's a highlight right around the edge. So make sure just right around that center part, and then you're gonna lift your pencil up gradually, going lighter, lighter pressure. Okay. A little bit here, because this is all going to be that white edge. So think about how you're alternating from dark to light. You don't want two darks right next to each other. Okay, and then here, so that that light edge stands out. Okay, and then right a little tiny bit behind it, because it's going to get that light edge of this to stand out. Just a little. Okay. And think of how it, it might be turning out a little bit, and those are the way that your lines are going to go. If it, it's curling around, you want that to be showing, that line to be showing that it's curling around. Okay. There's a little bit of shadow down here, so I'm going to put a little tiny bit. This I can do with my blending stump too, because I know I'm doing a blending stump. I can actually just kind of use my blending stump, because it always has a little bit of shade on it after you use it. Once you use it, you're going to see like it picks up graphite. So. And this one rolls around a little bit. So like it curls a little bit. So right on the edge of this, you're just going to have like this kind of very light, and we can do that with our blending stuff as well. Okay. All right. So I think this is all I'm going to do right now, so that I can get you guys going with the blending stump and finishing up. Okay. And I see this little ridge right here. Go around this part. Think of how this is kind of curling. This is actually like curling around a little bit, so I'm kind of giving it those lines that go like around. And of course we would have shadow on our leaves and on everything that's in the background too. Right now we're concentrating on the rose. And let's get that stem. So this is going to be pretty dark right here. Cast a little bit of shadow right on it. All that stuff is going to have, like, this is all going to be pretty shaded down here. Think about it if you hit it like in a vase or something like that. It'd all have some shadow on it. Okay. So it's all this play of what's going to be lighter, what's going to be darker, that type of thing. Forgot to do this little part right here. Let's get this part. Might as well do this all, and then we'll get the blending stump going. Okay. So now we are going to use the blending stump. Okay. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of this. Now what's going to happen is this is going to get pretty dark. So you're going to have a little scrap piece of paper next to you. And because your blending stump is going to get pretty dark, and you're not going to be able to use it in the lighter areas at some point. So this is a quite smooth blend that it gives you, as you can see. So if you're looking at this, this is what I have on there. So it's giving me, it actually is giving me, it's giving me shadow, it's giving me shade when I'm just using it on a regular white surface. Okay, so let's get some of this going. And a little bit of this up here. See how soft it makes it? And now when you want spaces that have highlights, some nice white spaces, we're gonna have to go back in with our eraser because we probably will go over a lot of these areas that actually have to be highlighted. So you'll go back in and you would use an eraser to kind of erase them out. Remember, this still is drawing, so don't go in a different direction because these shadows you're really going to see. It's almost like these little clouds of shadows. And if you see this cloud going different ways, it's not going to work right. It won't translate right, you know, to the viewer. And it's not going to make your drawing look the way that you want it to. So make sure that you're going in the right direction always. So I don't think just because I'm using the blending stump, I can kind of like just go back and forth, you know, in different directions. I'm gonna make this blend real nice and smooth here. Okay. Now you can kind of see how this needs a little bit of the graphite picked up because it had a little too much of the same tone around it. That has to stand out. That one is like coming out and around. So you gotta make sure that that one stands out. Okay, a little bit behind here. And I just want to do this just so that this stands out a little bit because this would be shaded back there. Okay, you can kind of see that. All right. We're on our way to finishing up this rose. So be careful, you want a nice little highlight edge. That means it's like white right around the edge of that, white right around the edges of all these guys. All these little ridges are going to have like a little white edge on them. So you're really seeing each individual petal. Remember to follow the direction of how it's kind of curling out. Follow, follow. We're going to have to give this one a little bit more over here. Even though it doesn't have too much more, I'm going to give it a little boost right here of a little darkness because it needs to stand out. You need to get a little shadow on you right there. There you go. Whoop. Okay. And here's my one that kind of was doing this rolling thing, and I'm not exactly sure which way it's really rolling, so I'm just kind of doing it the way that I think it's coming from here going out like that, but then this edge is, something's going on with this edge right there. Keep your edge right here nice and light. Okay, keep it very nice and light. Right here. No, that could be it. Okay. It's fun to do this. It's almost like you're kind of coloring in a little bit. But you definitely want it to go in the right spot. Alright, and then we're going to get this right here. Curl this around. These guys gotta curl, 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 curl. So. This one's behind. These guys, I want to keep some of that. I don't want it to be blended so much like this, because these are all my petals and this is different. This is a different thing underneath. All right, so here's our blended rose. Our shaded blended rose. So think about any little area that you need to highlight. Go back with your eraser and erase out any areas that are super white, you know, like little tips of things. You get that eraser in there and just, sometimes you can tap it. You can use a kneaded eraser. Just whatever you use is going to get it to go. So anyway, there you go.